Hey, what's going on? What's up, everybody? Hey, so I hope you all have been getting some helpful takeaways and lessons learned from our growth journey, our emotional growth journey. And, while I feel both Kathy and I are growing emotionally and very intentional at growing in this, in this particular area, in every area of our lives, of course, but right now, the phase that we're in is specifically our emotional growth journey, obviously along with our faith, our spiritual walk and stuff as well. But there are, what's up, girl? But there are a couple questions that Kathy asked me yesterday after we, published our episode 3. She asked me 2 questions that absolutely, so here's the challenge, the fascinating thing about this journey, this emotional journey that we're sharing with you all is that we're like, this is real time, Hola, Yasmiel, ¿cómo está? This is real time, right? So this is not, like, hey, these are lessons that we learned 5 years ago. These are lessons that we learned 2 years ago, 10 years ago. We are literally going through this emotional journey right now. Like right now, we are going through this. So it's a little bit surreal sharing this with you guys. And then we're having these conversations about stuff that we shared, about, just while we're growing. And it's like, wow, like, so I'm just telling you, like, these lessons that we're sharing are like real time. And she asked me 2 questions yesterday that, man, just really hit me. And the first question was, I'll start with the easier one. It wasn't easy for me, but she's like, hey, Noble, so about this particular situation, some conflict situations. How do you feel about this? And I'm like, well, I don't. I just said, how do you feel about the resolution piece of this, this conflict, this particular conflict situation that, that you're going through? And I said, well, here's what I know. What I know is I want to do this course of action. And so she's like, okay, that's great, but that's just a course of action. That's not how you feel. She said, I asked you, how do you feel about this particular situation?
You said, I feel like I want to do this.
Yeah, that's right. And so I said, I feel like I want to do this course of action. And she's like, Noble, again, that's not a feeling. You're still giving me an action. And man, I for the life of me, I could not figure out how I felt. And she's like, look, you clearly feel some kind of way just by my tone, my tempo, my pace, and my voice. She's like, I can tell that you clearly feel a certain way about this. And so she's like, okay, let me see if I can help you. She said, I feel like you feel, and she gave me a couple words. I don't remember exactly what it was, rejected or, rejected, frustrated, upset, angry, she's like, that's how it kind of feels when it's coming across. And I said, babe, I honestly, none of those are resonating with me. Not that I'm not feeling those. Maybe I am, but I just know that I want to do this course of action. And she's like, okay, well, that's fine. And that's great to know that. But, this is it. This is another huge one. Oh my goodness. This is free chicken I'm throwing out to you guys that I totally forgot to put in the title here. But here's what she said, because what has happened is, because of my emotions have never been validated before, or I've never known that they really existed, growing up as a kid into adulthood and stuff. And so the way it made me feel was, clearly I must not be valuable or important if if how I feel isn't important. Like, hey, feelings and emotions aren't important. They're not necessary or whatever. I just, that's kind of how I felt. And so the unintended consequence was, okay, well, if my feelings and emotions, which I don't know how to not feel some kind of way. If that's not important, that means that maybe that I guess I'm not important. So maybe I don't have value because my feelings and emotions don't have value. And so what would happen is, so then some folks have made me feel unvaluable. Or I don't know if is that even a word? I'm not even sure if that's a word or not. But and so it triggers this response in me that I'm not. It's almost like I'm not even in control. It's like it goes in not totally Hulk mode, but almost Hulk mode. And she said, "No, but here's what you got to realize, man." And so she's like, "Your course of action that you want to do is fine. You can totally have that course of action, but realize how somebody treats you is not a reflection of your worth." Pause for effect. How somebody treats you is not a reflection of your self-worth. It's not a reflection of your value. You know, we're Christians. Jesus is my Savior, and I feel like God created us all with value. Every one of us. If you got breath in your life, you have value. And so then, but I wouldn't. So I could intellectually tell you the right answer, but inside, I was connecting how somebody treated me to my value and worth as a person, as a man, as a husband, father, leader, influencer, that kind of dad, that kind of thing. And so she's like, dude, right? People are people, like we're all broken, fallible. We're all, none of us are perfect. So you can't, number one, you can't expect people to treat you the way you want to be treated all the time, right? So that's unrealistic. Number two is you also cannot connect how people treat you with your own self-worth and value. If you believe that you're God's kid, then you have value in and of itself. Like, here's a great analogy. If you had $100 bill and, so would you want a $100 bill, right? Does a $100 bill have value? Well, yeah, it's worth $100. Well, what if I crunched it up in a ball? Does that $100 bill still have value? Well, it's the exact same value. So regardless of how someone treats you, whether they crunch you up, whether they turn you into a paper airplane, whatever, my value, and again, this is just my opinion, my value comes from who I am in Christ, who I am in my relationship with the Lord. It's not, my value does not come from, oh, well, Susie gives me value and Frank gives me value and, Francis gives me value and Scott gives me value. No, it's I have value in who I am in the Lord. And so so anyways, that was another big giant takeaway for me, is that I've got to separate how people treat me with my self-worth and self-value. The other thing, the third thing that this is where the big one that she totally body slammed me with was, she said, Noble, and so we had more conversation, and she said, Noble, how do you feel that you support me? And that's kind of what I did when she asked me the question. She said, no, how do you feel that you support me? And she wasn't being like trying to get up in my business or anything like that. She genuinely, wanted to know. And I was like, wow, how do I feel that I support you? And of course, there are levels to that, right? So there are ways that maybe I physically support her with, providing for the family and that kind of thing, taking out the trash, right? Speaking her love languages, that kind of thing. But I took it a whole other level deeper. Now that I'm learning about this whole emotional stuff, is how do I support Kathy emotionally? Like, that question is still bouncing around in my being. And then the next level is, how am I supporting my kid emotionally? And that's the other piece, that's why I'm so intentional and serious about growing in this area, because I don't, my kid, she's not in the teenage years yet, but man, I want to be emotionally available and present for my kid, for my wife, for my family, for the people that I lead, that I mentor, that I influence. I want to be emotionally available and present. And so anyway, I wanted to share that question with you, that third question, and hopefully if there's other points in there that you can take away too, that'd be great. But I want to ask you all, how do you emotionally support your significant other? How do you emotionally support your children? And don't do it, children, break it down by child. Challenge yourself. Don't do a blanket statement, because it's easy. That's the easier way to answer the question. Well, I provide for the family. Well, yes, that's important, from a logistical standpoint, physical standpoint, provide a roof over the head, that's great. But take that question another level deeper. How do you emotionally support your loved ones? And obviously, depending on the relationship you have with your significant other, they could ask the question, you could ask them back, hey, how do you feel like you emotionally support me? And ultimately, here's another thing too, guys, is that, leaders are my passion. I love people. I'm passionate about all people, but who I feel God's called me to is leaders and influencers. And that's a really great question. If you are not emotionally healthy or emotionally fit, how are you going to be able to not only support your loved ones emotionally, but how do you support those people that you lead, those people that you influence? If you are not emotionally stable, emotionally predictable, emotionally healthy, if you're not emotionally aware of your own emotions and feelings, how are you going to be able to help coach, mentor, lead other people in the area of their emotions, if you're not even aware of your own? So anyway, I want to share that with you all. Hopefully you'll be able to get something from it. And again, if this is helpful, please, tag your friends or share this with other people. If other people can learn from, from the junk in my trunk and our emotional journey, that'd be great. There's other series of other videos that we've done the other previous days. We're going to keep doing some more on this series of emotional journeys. So God bless you all. You guys rock, and hope this helps. Put a takeaway in the thread too if you got something from this tonight. Thank you.